Alrighty, let's get into the other debate from yesterday's awards while everybody's giggling because I put 1988 on the board for Makari. You mentioned the video, whatever. Anyways, you write numbers on the board every now and then, you're going to write the wrong number. It's really not a big deal. But I guess there's somebody somewhere living under a rock that's going to go, he's 32? Like there's anybody that... Anyways. Technically 31 because we're not into October yet. But hey! Leon Draisaitl, Nathan MacKinnon. There was this giant outpouring of outrage that Draisaitl wins it because it's been 6 months since the regular season, so everybody's forgotten just how good Draisaitl was and how important he was to the Edmonton Oilers. And the funny thing is the argument that, well, he's got McDavid. He outshone McDavid. He outshone McDavid this year, and in games where they were both playing, Draisaitl was regularly the better player. So 71 games played, 43 goals, 67 assists, 110 points. And another interesting thing with Draisaitl is a lot of this year he spent anchoring his own line. So the argument of, well, he's riding the coattails of Connor McDavid, that's gone. That's not an issue. 1.55 points per game. Now Nathan MacKinnon, 69 games played, 35 goals, 58 assists, 93 points. 1.35 points per game. And so for MacKinnon, he loses the points per game battle against Draisaitl. If you look at the plus minus, this is where people have an issue. And this is the argument that people make, is that Draisaitl is not as good defensively as you want a guy to be to win MVP, I guess, at a -7. 10 game-winning goals, though, in 22 minutes and 37 seconds of ice time per game. And his face-offs, he won 52.1% of his face-offs. MacKinnon, plus 13, so that number is in favor of MacKinnon, but 4 game-winning goals, 21 minutes and 13 seconds of ice time on average per game, and his face-off winning percentage, 43.1%. And so this is where I understand the vote in favor of Leon. And, you know, he's better on the face-offs, he had more ice time, he had more game-winning goals. And again, the argument then becomes, okay, but if you take MacKinnon out of the Avs lineup, yes, but if you take Draisaitl out of the Oilers lineup too. And this is the other interesting part of it is that when McDavid's been out, Draisaitl's played very well. So again, we're going to hear the argument of, well, without McDavid. Yeah, without McDavid, Draisaitl's still pretty good. 27 hits, 19 blocked shots. MacKinnon, 51 hits, 31 blocked shots. In between MacKinnon and Makar, makes you think that if you're going to play for Jared Bednar, he expects some hitting and some little bit of something in your game defensively. Not a lot. 51 hits isn't a ton, but it's more than 27. And I acknowledge that on the physical side, defensively, MacKinnon's probably the better player. 91 giveaways for Draisaitl, 60 takeaways. 53 giveaways for MacKinnon, 38 takeaways. So the defensive numbers are in his favor. Both of them have 2 overtime goals, and then I knew I had to have this number on the board because it gets talked about with guys. 4 empty net goals for Draisaitl, 2 empty net assists. 3 empty net goals for MacKinnon, 4 empty net assists. So 7 points for the empty netters of MacKinnon and 6 for Draisaitl. The overall numbers, honestly, it all favors Draisaitl. And we can get into more of the debate of who's the most important. And, of course, there's Rangers fans right now. They're yelling and punching at the air because Panarin got robbed and all of this. And then the interesting thing to me, too, is people saying, well, the Oilers didn't make the playoffs, so Draisaitl shouldn't have been eligible. The problem is this. At the time of the voting, it's after the pause. It's before the playoffs. At the time of the pause, the Oilers, points percentage-wise, are 5th in the West. So it's not like anybody watching this would go, well, yeah, they're 5th in the West, but they're going to lose a play-in round that we don't know exists yet. And playoffs don't have any kind of a factor. I know when I did the Hughes-Makar comparison, I had playoff stats on the board only as like a comparable and taking a look at it, not because playoff stats make any difference to voting. And I've talked about awards voting and how maybe the entire playoffs shouldn't count, but maybe have the vote after the first round of the playoffs. Like, you have the Conn Smythe Award for the playoffs, which is great, but maybe just voting after the regular season, maybe that leaves out a large part of the issue. And, you know, MacKinnon in the playoffs was fantastic. None of that matters because none of it factors into the awards voting at all. Now, when we look at the voting, 91 first place votes go to Draisaitl, 48 first place votes go to MacKinnon. Second place, 31 votes went to Draisaitl, 66 to MacKinnon. Third place, 26 votes to Draisaitl, 34 to MacKinnon. Fourth place. So there's voters out there who think that Draisaitl was the 16th or was fourth best. 16 of them think he was fourth. 15 think MacKinnon was fourth on the Hart voting. That I find alarming. So when we look at who got first place votes, Panarin got 24 to go against the 48 of MacKinnon and 91 of Draisaitl. Pasternak got 3. Hellebuck got 3. McDavid got 1. There's one voter out there who said, you know what? McDavid's still the most valuable player in the league. Which is odd because I would argue that McDavid was not the most valuable player on the Oilers. And so the debate over who deserved to win the Hart Trophy, to me, Draisaitl. The other thing I found interesting yesterday, and I had to laugh at this when I saw it, was that Draisaitl shouldn't have won the Lindsay either. Yeah, the Ted Lindsay Award is voted on by players. The players are saying this is the best player in the league this year. And again, it's taken after the regular season. So when people talk about playoffs, I get the impression they don't understand when the voting is conducted and how. And the Lindsay Award is voted on by the players. I give that award more respect than the Hart, to be honest. While we're having the Hart debate, sure, we can also throw in the Lindsay Award, where players who've been on the ice playing with these guys say, you know what, MacKinnon's a great player. Draisaitl, for my money, is the best player in the National Hockey League. And I really honestly think that Draisaitl winning both the Hart and the Lindsay means that we're having this debate over who the best is and who the most important and most valuable is. And in reality, this season, it was Draisaitl. And it doesn't diminish what MacKinnon's done before this season, what he'll do after this season. Do I think he's going to win a Hart Trophy? Yes. Absolutely. Do I think MacKinnon's going to win a cup? Yes. That as well. I do think Colorado's on the right track, and I think Nathan MacKinnon's one of the best players in the league. But it is interesting to me that Draisaitl emerges from the shadow of McDavid, proves all the doubters wrong that he doesn't need McDavid in order to score a ton of points. He's way ahead of everybody else points-wise, and yet we're still having this debate about whether or not he deserves to be the MVP this year. I can understand the defensive aspect of it. I can. And defensively, Draisaitl is not as solid, I don't believe, as MacKinnon. But we're just looking at this season. We're not looking at the whole picture of their entire careers. And we'll see what Draisaitl does next year. I would not be surprised to see him hit 100 points again if we have a 70-75 game season even. I think he'll hit 100 points. And he is a huge part of why the Oilers should be at least a playoff team for the next few years. Whether or not they build to a contender depends on whether or not what Ken Holland does with the team. But Draisaitl's been fantastic, and most of the voters gave that vote to Draisaitl. There were 48 people who said MacKinnon was the best, but in terms of the overall picture, 114 felt that MacKinnon was first or second. 122 felt that Draisaitl was first or second in terms of MVP. And yeah. So I do think they got it right. And again, I talked about Makar in the last video. I thought they got it right. And I do. I think Draisaitl, I think they got this right this year. Again, it doesn't diminish anything MacKinnon's done. It's just, Draisaitl was fantastic. But when it's been 6 months since the regular season, I think that's part of it. And I think that we've seen, hockey and during the pause or after the pause here in the bubbles, we've seen what happened to the Oilers, what happened to the Avs. So I think that propagates this idea that, hey, well, clearly MacKinnon's the better player of the two. And again, the voting was done in March. After the pause, I know it was done after they declared the regular season done and finished, but it was before we started seeing hockey within the Toronto and Edmonton bubbles. So as much as we would say that should count, it doesn't. It does not factor in at all to the voting process, and therefore Leon Draisaitl's the winner. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I know there are a lot of people who have some thoughts. And again, I won't try to argue that MacKinnon doesn't deserve it. I'm just looking at the sheer numbers and saying I can understand why Draisaitl got the votes. And yeah, if I had a vote, it would have gone to Makar for the Calder, and it probably would have gone to Draisaitl for the Hart as well. I don't get a vote, so it's not on me. But I would have voted for Draisaitl. He had an amazing season. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. And the future is very bright in Colorado because you've got some very special talents there. Thanks again for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.